Thank you, everybody. I'm Alana, pre-law advisor at Yeshiva University, and we have an esteemed panel tonight, and they will introduce themselves. Thank you so much for coming. Start with Peter.
Oh, me. Okay. Welcome. I'm Peter King. I work at Benjamin Cardozo School of Law. I went to William & Mary for my college and New York Law School for law school, and went into private practice for many years in Connecticut and New York, and then moved into higher ed and became the director of admissions at a number of graduate schools, one for Graduate School of Education, and then at FDU in New Jersey, and then the New School on Fifth Avenue, and then NYU. I was the director of admissions at the Graduate School of Public Service. And then I went and taught for 10 years, and then they dragged me back into admissions. And here I am at Benjamin Cardozo, and I have to say it's the best job I've ever had. I love the people I work with, and they're brilliant and they're kind, and just so happy being able to do this. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about law school or anything else. So that's where I'm going to start. Kat, do you want to?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kat Espiritu. I'm the Director of Admissions at Fordham Law School. I've been the Director of Admissions at Fordham for the last 14 years, but I've been in the law school admissions space for over 2 decades. Worked at 2 other law schools in addition to Fordham, in New York City, all on the island of Manhattan. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. This is always such a great panel. So thanks for having me, and I look forward to our conversation. And I will throw it over to my colleague, Melissa.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Lee, and I'm here with the Charles Widger School of Law at Villanova University. I am the Assistant Dean for Admissions, and unlike my colleagues, I've been at Villanova Law School for all of 3 months. My first time doing law school admissions, but I've been doing graduate admissions for over 20 years. First starting about 15 years at Princeton University School of Public and International Affairs. Then I moved on to University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing, and now I'm at Villanova. So looking forward to speaking with you all this evening.
So I guess I'll initiate it by saying if anyone has any questions, we're here to answer them. And really, there's no question too small or too large. And if it's too large, I'll just say I don't know. So what can we help you with?
And I always say, if you are thinking of a question, you should ask it, because that means many other people are also thinking it, and you are just the brave person to go first. So feel free to raise your hand, and if you're shyer, or again, in a position that you can't unmute, you can definitely feel free to put your question in the chat, and we'll also make sure that it is being responded to.
Right.
So Gilad, did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, that's correct. First of all, I wanted to thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it. I wanted to just ask you guys if you guys could talk about clinics at your law schools. If you guys just talk about clinics, that'd be great.
So who wants to?
I'll start. So at Villanova School of Law, we have 8 in-house clinics: health law, IP, asylum, refugee, and immigration law, farm worker legal aid, law and entrepreneurship, federal tax law, Caritas clemency clinic, and civil justice. And this allows our students, in addition to traditional externships, but this allows our students to work with actual clients. And so the clients come to the school, or in some cases, our students will fly out to visit with clients. You have the opportunity to represent them in their issue in court, or you can also work in small teams or one-on-one.
So I'll go next. At Cardozo, we really started with the idea of trying to promote experiential legal education. And as a consequence, we're the birthplace of the Innocence Project, if you're thinking about criminal law. And it just blossomed from there. We now have 12 in-house clinics, and they range everywhere from litigation-based clinics to more business law, transactional law clinics. So we have the Betsadec Civil Litigation Clinic and Civil Rights Clinic, Criminal Defense Clinic, a Divorce Mediation Clinic, Human Rights, Immigration. We even have a indie filmmakers legal clinic. So there's really a wide range of opportunities for experiential learning at Cardozo. We're quite proud of it. In fact, we joke that we have a small law firm on the 11th floor of our school because our students are doing so many different things.
And at Fordham, part of our Jesuit identity is educating you as a complete lawyer. And so we have a strong focus on making sure that we provide you a lot of academic offerings, but also making sure that you have a lot of experiential learning opportunities. We have 20 in-house clinics at the law school. The 9th floor of our law building is an actual law firm, Lincoln Center Legal Services. The clinic experience is guaranteed at Fordham sometime during your 2nd or 3rd year. So if it's an experience that you want, you can have it. We have about 650 students that participate in some sort of either clinical or externship opportunity each year. And our clinics range anywhere from immigration law to corporate securities, entrepreneurship, IP, law and the democracy. So also a really wide stance of clinical opportunities as well. And we want you to use New York City as an extension of the classroom. So we have a large number of externships that students can participate in that are either a quick subway ride away or a walk across.
Thank you, guys.
It's a great question.
Charlie?
Yep. Hi. Thank you guys for doing this. It's really cool. One of the best parts about being at yeshiva, I find, is the fact that the classes are so small. So you're able to foster relationships with the professors, as well as I feel like learn a little more hands-on. I'm curious what the class size is like at all your law schools, and how that impacts not only the learning, but the relationships that you can make with the professors and everything like that.
Well,
Yes, I can go. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Okay. At Cardozo, our 1L sections are usually around 50. And at other schools, I know that it can range anywhere from about that to 150. So I would say that, you know, our sections are relatively small compared to some schools and not small compared to others. And then after that, in your 2L and 3L, it's really up to you what courses you take. You can take seminars with 8 or 9, 10 or 11 people, and some of the more popular classes can have 20 or 30. And it really depends on you, what kind of environment you want. So that's what I've been told from our current students.
And for us at Villanova, we enroll about 160 to 180 students per year. So our 1L sections are anywhere between 35 to 40. And we're purposely remaining at that size, similar to what you were just saying, that allows our students to get a lot of one-on-one guidance and mentorship. It definitely helps in your 2L year with your externship placements and things of that nature. So we intentionally will remain around that size on the smaller side of a law school.
Fordham is one of the largest law schools in the country. Last year, I think we were 9th in terms of size. We enrolled about 430 30 students in our entering class, so about 370 in our full-time day program and 60 in our part-time evening program. But because we're a large school, we also have a large faculty. So our first year sections are 40 students, and then you have a super section of 90. So you'll have all your classes with either that 40 cohort or 90 super section. And then the legal research and writing class that you take for the full year is anywhere from 13 to 17 students. Fordham integrated a house system back in 2019. Each super section is a house, very similar to Harry Potter, if people are still reading that. So each house has a faculty mentor. You also have upper level students who are on the board of student advisors who act as mentors. Each house, your first year, also has a liaison from each student facing office. CPC, career planning, public interest, Office of Student Affairs, and then you also have alumni mentors. The purpose of the house is so that you get to meet your cohort outside of academics, just all having property or torts together. So you meet every other week on non-academic items such as health and wellness, resume building, study skills, and then just hanging out with each other, like going out to dinner with your house leader or something like that. And then going into electives, you can have a class as small as 6. I think that's the smallest a class can be in order to still, not be canceled, a seminar. And then the largest class that you have as a second or third year student would be either corporations or evidence, which is about 120 students.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
Sure.
Samuel.
Hi, thank you. Thank you guys all so much for being here. Just wondering, in terms of the application process, if you guys can dive into a little bit for your respective schools, what goes into a really attractive application? Maybe, outside of the obvious factors such as a high LSAT or high GPA, but maybe about internships or about experience, and whatever else you would think, might goes a little under the rug when it comes to an attractive application for law school.
We can start with that. So for us, we definitely practice holistic admissions. And so what that means, we are looking at every aspect of the application. And so we are looking for, I personally, when I read an application, I want to understand what is your journey? How did you become interested in law? It could be through a personal reason. It could have been through, a particular course. What area of law are you interested in? But also looking for skills that are relevant to being a successful law student, such as analytical skills, really strong writing skills. We want to make sure that you understand why our program is a fit. So, make sure that you do your research about each school and understand why you're selecting that school and tell us about that. Also, really strong letters of recommendation, someone who really can speak to your skill set that's relevant to law school. And so if you had an internship or an academic letter of recommendation, make sure that person really knows you. Don't just go for the big name, because that's not helpful if they just submit sort of a form letter of recommendation. Because sometimes it may come down to really looking at those letter of recommendation. So make sure that it's someone who really knows you well, knows why you would be a good fit for law school, and what skills that you have are particularly strong and relevant for law school. And so also take a look at your resume, looking for leadership involvement, any type of internship. If you have exposure to law, great. But also if you don't have law specific internships, what type of internship did you have? And also just looking for those skills that are relevant to law school. So looking at every aspect of your application to see at the end of the day if this is a really good fit on both sides.
I would agree with what Melissa said. it's a hard question for me to answer because I try not to review an application with any preconceived expectations or criteria in my head. I just try to get to know you. And so all of that paperwork is there really to give you an opportunity to present yourself to us. We can't interview you. We don't have the resources for that. So really it's your opportunity to tell us about who you are. And I personally prefer to be shown rather than told. So a long list of your qualities, like I'm reliable and I'm intelligent, doesn't mean as much to me as maybe a story about you, an experience you've had, a narrative of some sort that is a really compelling presentation of an experience you've had. It also shows me how well you write, how organized your thinking is. Can you write concisely? Because it's a limited amount of space you have. And all of those things factor in. As far as the letters of recommendation are concerned, if you still have an opportunity to do it at this point, manage your recommenders and go to them and say, I'd like you to write a recommendation for me about, and it should be some sort of experience you've had with them. And I agree that getting a letter of recommendation from the Pope, who doesn't really know you, won't really impress anybody. But a strong letter of recommendation from someone who really knows you, that speaks volumes. So that's often very helpful. And I also do look in your resume for some sort of longstanding interest in the law or some sort of exposure to the law, although that's just me. There are other readers that doesn't matter. Really just present yourself as accurately and as comprehensively as you can and be as authentic as possible. And that's your best shot. I often feel a kind of resonance when I'm reading a compelling application that says, yep, this person is right for us. So just be yourself. I know that's hard sometimes. So.
I really agree with everything my co-panelists have said, so I don't really have anything to add, but I do want to say, because you started with, what else do we look for beyond, a strong LSAT and a strong GPA? Those are not the end all be all of your application. Both my fellow panelists listed all these other things that we look at. And we're actually at the stage at Fordham where we are starting to review applications and send out decisions. And I've gotten some phone calls already from students who are unhappy with their decision, and their leading thing is like, I'm at your medians or I'm above your medians. And last year we had 6,400 applicants for our entering class. And so, just to stress that numbers aren't everything. You still have to make sure you have a compelling application that everyone said, and just to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Benjamin?
Hi, how are you guys? Thank you for coming to the panel, and also thank you, Alana, really, for organizing the event. So my question is similar to like what Charlie said. Since YU Yeshiva is a relatively small university, I always felt that when I needed help with a guiding to my future or career planning, there were a lot of resources that were very hands-on and usually very quick to help me. So I was wondering if you guys could maybe speak to each of your respective law schools, how when a student gets in his second or third year, how the resources can really provide help to a future career or internships.
I guess I can start just by saying, I mentioned the house system in the first year of law school at Fordham, and that really extends, not formally, so you don't have like second and third year houses, but that mentorship and guidance does follow you your second and third year of law school. So you can have upper level students who become advisors, third years become advisors to second years, and then the liaisons that I mentioned, they follow you as well throughout your time at Fordham. Particularly, you mentioned kind of finding your postgraduate outcomes, our Career Planning Center will work very closely with you throughout that process. And you'll also find kind of natural mentors and advisors through professors in the classes that you choose to take, various like experiential learning opportunities, whether it be, doing a clinic or a journal. I think that it happens, again, just very naturally in law school. We want to make sure that you don't feel lost.
So at Cardozo, what I hear from the current students is that you're going to get more mentors and you're going to know what to do with. Current students, faculty, staff, student services, career services. I've been told that career services actually approaches you during orientation and says, please come make an appointment to see us, because they want to get their dibs in about what courses you're taking, what clinics you're going to be thinking about, and everything else. So really, there's no lack of support and advice. We will hold your hand as much or as little as you need, and it's there. We will not, you're responsible for reaching out, but we are certainly present. So I don't know how else to describe that.
And similarly, for us, our career strategy office starts working with our students just right off of orientation, literally. So the career counseling really starts in your first year. We have also integrated professional development throughout our programming to a point where you do receive some course credit for that. But, they do everything from, resume development, mock interviews, just really speaking with our students to get a sense of what their interests are, what their passions are, to kind of get you prepped and prepared. So when you start your externships or work in one of our clinics in your second year, that you're well prepared. And then on the student services side, there is an Office of Academic Success. And again, our faculty are very much invested in the success of our students. And so there's lots of support. You'll have, a 2L, 3L student mentor, as well as a faculty mentor. We also have centers of excellence where we have student fellows. And so really depending, and then we have over 40 student organizations. So there is guidance, assistance, and mentorship for our students in many ways, professionally, academically, and our alumni network is phenomenal as well.
Thank you.
David?
Hi, thank you so much for meeting with us, everyone. I wanted to ask about a concentration of law, and if you can study and focus on a specific area of law in the respective law schools.
So it doesn't really work that way in law school. The first year is pretty much all doctrinal courses, and you don't have much of a choice. It's, contracts, real estate, criminal procedure, things like that, civil procedure. And then in your second and third year, at least at Cardozo, I don't know about elsewhere, but you can basically take whatever courses you want to. Very few requirements or prerequisites at all. So it's really up to you. And so as a consequence, you can go as broad and explore as many topics as you want, or as deep into one topic as you want. And one of the things you should be looking at is the variety and depth of the coursework that's available to you. And all I would say on that score is what many people think they want to do going into law school is not what they wind up actually getting excited about once they're in law school. So just keep an open mind about that.
Thank you very much.
For us, we do have 5 areas of concentration, but you have to apply into those concentration areas. And that you can apply in your spring of the first year in the program, but you still may only have an opportunity to take one introductory course in your first year. But those 5 areas of concentration are business law, intellectual property, health law, litigation and dispute resolution, or sports law. So those are our 5 areas of concentration, but that is something, again, you have to apply into if you choose to. But then we have 15 areas of focus of various areas of law. And then again, in your second year, that's where you have more of the flexibility to kind of take the courses that you want to take across areas of interest, things of that nature. So there is a lot of flexibility outside of the concentrations if you decide that's not what you want to do.
Thank you very much.
At Fordham, we do have 5 concentrations. They are completely optional. They were created in, I think, 2014 out of a response of students who wanted a little bit more guidance academically. So it is in corporate law, international law, public interest, IP, and dispute resolution. Only about 50% of our graduating classes actually participate in concentrations. We offer almost 300 electives, so you can have as broad or as focused an academic time as you want. And then going into your second and third year, Fordham only has 3 upper level requirements. So we require that you take corporations, you have to take professional responsibility, which is required for the bar, and then you have to take an upper level writing class, but that writing class can be satisfied across subject area. And for us, a concentration, you don't have to apply. Again, optional, it's 5 classes, 2 required classes, 2 electives, and 1 experiential component.
Thank you very much.
Benjamin?
Yeah, hi, how are you? Just a quick question regarding academic scholarships. Does one apply for that, or does the school usually just give them out based on merit?
That's really school specific. So it probably is best that we all talk about it individually. So at Fordham, we offer both merit-based scholarships and need-based grants. So merit scholarships you don't have to apply for. You're automatically considered at the time of your acceptance. Your application goes back to a scholarship committee. It's re-reviewed, and then you're notified if eligible for a scholarship, what that amount will be, roughly 2 to 3 weeks after your initial acceptance. Need-based grants are something that you would apply for after you've been admitted. It's a combination of your FAFSA and Fordham Law financial aid application. And those are 2 completely separate processes. So you can receive a merit scholarship and also receive a need-based grant. All of our merit scholarships are non-conditional. So the money you get your first year of law school, you carry with you for your 3 or 4 years of law school if you're a part-time evening student. And our need-based grant money is guaranteed for your first 2 years of law school, and then we reassess your need going into your 3rd year. The reason that we reassess your need is that a very large population of Fordham students do summer associate positions with big law firms. Those are very, very well paying summers. And so that shifts your need going into the 3rd year.
I would say that Cardozo is very similar. We review every application for merit-based aid, and we also have institutional funds and need-based grants. There are a few dedicated scholarships you can apply to that are focused in specific areas after you've been admitted, but it's very similar. So.
Yeah, we do have merit-based scholarships as well, based on the strength of your application. One specifically is the Charles Widger Leadership Scholarship, the namesake of our law school. We award 3, and they are full scholarships. full tuition scholarships for students with a background in business and leadership and entrepreneurship. And then we also have another merit scholarship for anyone interested in public interest law, and that can be a partial up to a full scholarship as well. Also, you would indicate if you're interested in that scholarship on our application. But again, it is merit-based, and if you check that you are interested in that scholarship, there's a question that you would have to answer on the application for consideration. And then we have our Dean's Merit Scholarship. Again, based on the strength of your application, it's not a separate application process. Again, it's awarded at admission, and this can be combined with any need-based aid as well.
Thank you.
Gilad?
Yeah, just a second question. I wanted to know if you guys could touch upon Jewish life at your respective law schools. I know there's like a organization called JALSA. I don't know if you guys have that at your law schools or not, but just wanted to know more about that.
Well, at Cardozo, we're owned by Yeshiva University. They tell us about what holidays we can take, and every public event has kosher food. So we're very accommodating in that regard, although we do tend to see ourselves as a secular law school, and there are no required religious courses that you have to take. I would say, however, that because of our legacy of Benjamin Cardozo, who was known as very ethical and professional, full of integrity, that I think some of that has trickled down into the general philosophy of our school, and we do see ourselves as having more of a moral compass and more of a character preference. We want strong character and professionalism for sure. So I don't know if that completely answers your question, but
No, it did. Thank you.
right.
And Villanova is an Augustinian Catholic university, but students of all faiths and organizations of all faiths are welcome and encouraged at Villanova. And so all of our organizations are led by our students. They're provided a budget. They can develop their own programming, bring in speakers, and all students are invited to celebrate and appreciate all of our student organizations. And that is our approach, and a very supportive environment.
Fordham is a Jesuit institution, but the law school is also similar, I think, to Cardozo in terms of our secular approach. However, we do have a very active Jewish Law Students Association, JALSA, as you said. They are one of the many affinity groups that we have on campus, yeah, it's very active, and we engage with them every year in terms of working with admitted students.
Thank you, guys.
Amalia?
Thank you all so much for taking the time to speak with us. We really appreciate it. I was
Sure.
wondering if your respective law schools open any opportunities to pursue joint degrees in tandem with the law degree, and if yes, what the details are for pursuing and achieving those and applying for those sort of opportunities.
Yes, we have a joint JD MBA and a JD MPA, Master in Public Administration. And the process is, once you're admitted, then you can apply for a joint degree with that particular school. So if you're interested, for instance, in the MBA, in the spring year of your first year in the program, you can apply to one of their joint programs. And it will be based on their admissions process that's separate from the law school. And with the JD programs, you can complete both in 3 years.
At Fordham, we have 3 joint degree programs. So we have a JD MBA, a JD MSW, and a JD Masters in International Political and Economic Development. You can either apply to all 3 programs concurrently or you can apply within the first year of law school. If you apply concurrently, you must start at the law school. So many students choose to apply during their first year of law school, but it's not mandatory. And it is completely separate admissions processes, and all joint degrees you would finish within 4 years.
Yeah, I would emphasize that a joint degree is really something that you need to take on as your responsibility. It's a very complicated administrative process, and most joint degrees require you to be admitted into each school separately. And then you have the job of sort of bringing those two schools together to make sure they pay attention to you and get the job done. That's just after years of experience of dealing with dual degrees in other schools. So I would say most of the time you complete a year or two of law school first, and then many of those credits often transfer into the other program, and that's how you speed up the process. And then you take a year of business school or two, and then come back for your last year of law school very often. The only additional thing I would say about Cardozo is we also have a dual degree in bioethics. We used to have a more formal relationship with the Albert Einstein School of Medicine, and that's one of the legacies of that. And it sort of dovetails with our focus on biotechnology and tech innovation. So it's a very interesting dual degree as well.
Great. Thank you all so much. That was really informative.
Michael?
Hi, thank you all for taking the time to speak with us today. Just had a YU specific question. And YU does this weird thing with their transcripts where they put Hebrew words and they transliterate them into English for the classes. So I wanted to know if you guys would prefer us to write an addenda explaining what that class is, or just leave it up for their imagination.
You know, I've never noticed that, and I've seen a lot of them.
Same here. Yeah.
So I would say don't make an issue where there isn't one. That would be my guess. But if you feel like there's something that needs to be framed or characterized in a specific way, then feel free to include a brief addendum. But I don't have any experience with that.
Okay, thank you.
Paige?
Hi, yeah. Thank you guys again for coming. My question is in relation to each of your schools' alumni networks. How large are they? What kind of connections can someone who attends your school expect to make? And how supportive are the schools in regards to their alumni?
So I guess I'll go first. We're a relatively young school. We opened in the early 70s. We have about 15,000 alumni, but I got to tell you, they're small, but they're mighty. It's really an extraordinary community, really engaged. It's a reflection of the experience that they've had at the school. They're not fleeing the school like they've just gone through boot camp. They just love being here. They want to give back. That's been my experience. And I've been in a lot of other higher ed institutions where, you know, alumni are hard to find. And the Cardozo alum are quite amazing in terms of them calling us and saying, what can we do to help? And I've never experienced that before. So I would say that if you're thinking about going into practice and having a resource that will be available to you after the fact, looking at the alumni network is really important. So it's a great question, and one that's often missed because you're not thinking about being an alum when you're just trying to get into law school. So I would say if you can, reach out to alumni before you go in to get a sense of what they're about. I think that can often be very helpful.
Yeah, we have a strong alumni network as well, about 12,000. And they work across many disciplines in law, extremely supportive at the school, and they contribute in many ways. Some of which they are sort of in your externships. Obviously, they recruit and hire students. They often volunteer to help out with any admissions, recruitment, participating on panels, visiting the school whenever we ask. So our alumni are always ready and willing to give back, and that is a testament of because of their experience with the school. But yes, our alumni are extremely active.
Fordham being a really big school, we have a really large alumni base. We are about 21,000 alum. We have alumni in all 50 states and in 95 countries across the world. So it's very far reaching. And like my fellow co-panelists, I think that our alums are very active and engaged, particularly in the hiring. Something that we, really stress is when the economy turned in like 2008-9, it was Fordham alums that kept our graduates afloat. Big law firms were cutting the size of their summer programs across the country, and our alums, many of them who are hiring partners, managing partners, insisted that Fordham, they continue to hire Fordham. And I think that is also a testament to the experience that they had when they were law students. And they give back in many other ways, but particularly in terms of placement, they've been really, really beneficial. David?
Thanks so much. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, Paige, did you have another question?
No, I was just saying thank you.
Oh. David?
Thank you. In terms of free clinics, in terms of centers, institutions, the law journal, pro bono work, things like that, do students get credit at the individual law schools for such,
Yes,
I guess, participation and engagement?
for sure.
I will say, oh, go ahead, Peter.
And there are different lengths of clinics. You can have one clinic that's one term and another clinic that goes 2 terms, and we even have some that go 3 terms. And they all come with different credit levels. Okay.
Thank you.
The only thing I was going to add in terms of journals, the only way to get credit for a journal is once you're on the executive board. So if you're just on staff, say as a second year student, you don't typically get a credit. But if you're on the exec board, you'll get anywhere from like 1 to 2 credits as a third year student. But the same applies for the clinics and the externships.
And the same as well. But I also wanted to also just highlight, you mentioned centers. So we have 4 centers, and while you won't get credit for participation in the centers per se, unless you're doing an externship that's associated with a center, but the centers also have fellows, and that comes with benefits as well in terms of they participate in a lot of competitions across the country. There's additional mentorship. The centers bring in lots of speakers and experts. So it's just a sort of another extension of your experience and learning at the school.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any anecdotes?
Benjamin?
I was just curious, can you guys maybe speak a little bit about a typical day in the school, like a schedule or yeah.
We're all very
mean,
reluctant.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. Yeah, you're going to hear that so much. I mean, your first year is very set in stone. But even then, your schedule, we tell you as a first year, you have to be available for class Monday through Thursday, 9 to 4:30, and then on Fridays until 2. And then your second and third year, it's whatever you want to make it, because it's mostly electives. So if you feel like only having class 3 days a week, you can completely do that. At Fordham, we have 2 periods a week, Wednesdays and I think Mondays, where there is like a no class block. So student organizations can meet, journals, like competition teams. But again, it's very flexible outside of your first year.
I would say that we all probably have ways for you to attend an information session or take a tour, and very often you can reach out and talk to current students, and that's really where you should ask that question. So they'll be able to tell you more in detail what their day is like.
Thank you.
Samuel?
Hi. So in terms of applications, the timing of applications, so how many applications do you see of people coming, a year or 2 out of undergrad, and how many applications, I guess not statistically how many, but would you recommend taking time in between undergrad and applying to law school, maybe a gap year or working professionally for a year or 2, or do you feel like it doesn't really matter in terms of the success of the application?
I am going to give a statistic. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Melissa.
No, go ahead. You can go ahead.
The average age of the national pool is 24. So more applicants than not do take time off prior to going to law school. I don't necessarily think that means that one application is better than another if you're like KJD or if you take time off, but in terms of the national pool, that's what we're looking at. Sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
No, I was just going to also say for Villanova Law specifically, about 48% of our applicants are coming straight from undergrad. We have about 6% who have advanced degrees. And so I think that question is really up to you. I always advise applicants to do sort of a self-assessment in terms of your readiness for law school. If you feel that during your undergraduate experience, you had enough internships and exposure to law that you feel comfortable in terms of choosing a law school. Some students will take a gap year to study and prepare for the LSAT. So it really is up to you to make that decision. Having experience, I think it's certainly helpful coming into any sort of JD or graduate level program. But it's really up to you. I don't think in terms of an admission standpoint, it would hurt you in any way necessarily if you're going straight through. But again, if you're gaining work experience, I think it's only going to add to your experience when you enter into law school.
I couldn't agree more with Melissa. At Cardozo, about a third of our class is coming directly from college, and the other 2/3 are about age 24, 25. And you can have somebody coming right out of college who has a really focused personal statement, knows why they're going to law school, and that's great. And you can have people who are older who still aren't sure about exactly why they're going to law school. So it really is up to you, and it's not going to have it wouldn't have an impact on me in terms of, is it going to help or hurt you getting in or not? That's really not the issue.
Okay,
The
thank you.
one
If I could
thing I
just-
want to, just in terms of age, I just want to point out, because we have a part-time evening program, the average age of our part-time evening program is 31. So those it is geared towards people who have pretty significant work experience going into the application process. And I'm mentioning that today because we've gotten a lot of emails this past week about kind of looking at our stats and like seeing the breakdown between our full-time and part-time and how the statistics are kind of different. And, you know, age plays a role in that because people will see kind of lower medians, but that's because, you know, we've all talked about the holistic process. These people have a lot of experience after school that they're bringing to the table that kind of helps offset those reported medians.
Yeah, thank you all. If I could ask one follow-up, some of you spoke about experience. So maybe just for the sake of specificity, what kind of experience would you describe that would translate well into for law school? What would that look like in the professional world before going straight into a law firm as a lawyer?
I think it just goes back to what I was saying earlier, that any type of work experience that will demonstrate skills that are sort of relevant for law school. So anything that's going to give you experience in strengthening your writing skills, your research skills, your analytical skills, problem solving, those are all skills that are relevant to skills that you would need to have in law school and be successful in law school and later on as a successful lawyer. So any type of experience that would, you know, showcase or exhibit those skills, I would say are relevant.
Agreed.
Great, thank you.
I see someone in the chat asked about letters of recommendation. What's a good number? For us, we require one academic rec and one additional recommendation of your choice. We'll accept up to 3. After that, really, it's not such a great idea. You don't want to be piling on the things that need to be read during your review process, for one. And you need a good reason to want more than 3, I would say. That's my personal take on it.
We require 2. We don't have any requirement of 1 being academic, but it is a strong preference of ours. And then we'll accept up to 4 through LSAC. However, as Peter mentioned, you really have to think extra hard about what that 4th letter of recommendation is going to add to your file.
And for us, I'll just add on to that. If you're applying to our law school straight from undergrad, you have to have an academic letter of reference. But then that would be the requirement. I would recommend if you've done any internships or professional experience, a professional letter of recommendation. I would also recommend. We too will accept up to 4, but really we require 1, but I would suggest at least 2 if you're coming straight from undergrad, 1 being academic and 1 being a professional if you have any internship experience.
I also know that there was some questions just out there in the universe about the new LSAT that is starting shortly. So LSAC recently announced that they are eliminating the logic game section of the LSAT, and that is happening at the, I guess it's like 2024.
Yes.
And so thoughts on that? I know that LSAC recently hosted an event for admissions officers and, you know, pre-law advisors about this. And it's going to be the same like validity in terms of, you know, what it's testing. And, you know, the takeaway that LSAC gave is that you should kind of think about your own strengths. So the woman who was giving the talk said, if you know that logic games is something that you're really, really, really good at, then you might want to take the LSAT before those go away. If the logic games are something that you have traditionally struggled with, and you have the opportunity, obviously, if you're applying a cycle, this is not an option for you. But if this is something that you're thinking about down the road, then maybe you wait. I don't personally have an opinion about it, but this is coming from the mouth of the LSAC professionals.
So now I'll go in the other direction and give you my personal opinion. I used to tutor for the LSAT test prep, and I got to the point where I realized that all three sections, whether it was logic games, logical reasoning, or reading comprehension, were all doing essentially the same thing. And it's all based upon symbolic logic principles and the principle of non-contradiction, and it flows from there. And so what the LSAC has actually done is established that even with the change, it's not going to significantly change your results. And the reason for that is that logic games is testing this same thing as logical reasoning, just in a different form. So it really doesn't matter. That's my personal opinion. I'm not speaking for the LSAC or for Cardozo. So I'm just letting you know. There was another question too, right?
Yashay, sorry, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I guess it's just following up on that point, because you said that they recommended that if it's something you struggle with, then maybe you would wait for the next year, and if it's something you're good at, you wait for this year. So I don't know if there's necessarily an objective answer to this, but supposing someone were to take both and like you could see a difference in the scores, do you think that that's something that law schools would look at maybe harshly, as in like maybe the fact that the logic games isn't there and that's why he did better? Or
no, the LSAT has dramatically changed in the time of COVID, and it's all been the same. So, and anyone on this attending who took the LSAT Flex, which happened, during COVID, it went down to 3 sections, and then they've added back subsequently another section, so it's back 4, and all of those are weighted equally in terms of your admissions process.
Thank you.
On that score, I can't help myself from also chiming in about retests. My understanding is that most people score pretty close to the score that they got the last time, unless there's a really good reason why you feel like you didn't perform up to your potential the first time. So when thinking about whether you want to take the test again, can you identify an actual reason why your score would be low? Just being unhappy with your score is a little bit too vague for me, and that's what I tell people. So I'm just passing along what I say to people. If you can identify there was a jackhammer outside the test center window, or you were sick that day, or somebody in your family died, and you took the test anyway, okay, I get that. You might want to take the test again. But otherwise, the statistics show that if you take the test without that really good reason, you're going to score pretty close to what you did the last time. So I don't know if I'm telling tales out of school or not, but that's, again, sort of my personal wisdom from having done the test prep for years prior. So that has less to do with me as an admissions person and just trying to spare people the misery.
And for us, we will take your higher score. We don't average the scores together. So it doesn't necessarily matter to us if you've taken it more than once, and we'll just look at your higher score.
So we're coming to the hour mark, and I want to be really sensitive of everyone's time. I know that you're all really busy students, so I don't know if anyone has any last questions. Perhaps all of the panelists can drop their contact information in the chat or contact information of our respective law schools. Definitely, please feel free to reach out to us directly if you have any questions. I like to end panels by saying stay off Reddit. It's devil. Cause of so much applicant anxiety. Great. Alana, is there anything else?
No, I want to thank you. This was wonderful, insightful, and anyone that needs your information, I too will give your emails out.
Wonderful.
Thank you all for joining us. Really
Right.
good questions.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.